both 80% off. Cat Quest 1 is $2.59, while Cat Quest 2 is $2.99. Now, Cat Quest 2 does have the benefit of having cooperative play, so if you do want to check that out, that is an option. Cat Quest, I've always talked about it being a super charming, very straightforward RPG. It's a cute game. It's a game that's accessible to just about any age range, and I imagine during this holiday period, you want to find a game that maybe a younger sibling, a younger cousin, whatever the case may be, your kid, whatever, can get into and play. But maybe you don't want to put them on Elden Ring right away. Well, Cat Quest is definitely the polar opposite to an Elden Ring, to a, I don't know, Death Stranding. I don't know, maybe some of you guys think, yo, let me put my kid on Death Stranding as their first foray into video games. Yeah, don't do that. But Cat Quest and Cat Quest 2 are actually solid entries into gaming in general, and even if you're older, if you've been around the block for a while, sometimes you need a little, something that's a little bit of a divergence from your big budget, challenging experience that, you know, something like a Cat Quest can offer something to like, and when it's this cheap, I think it's a pretty accessible experience that people should check out. Next up, do I really need to give this game that big of a shout? I'm gonna anyway, because $2.99 is such a great deal, but Bastion is a tremendous game. I know Supergiant these days is gonna get a lot of attention for their work on Hades, and rightfully so. Based on what I've played and based on just looking at the playtime that my friends have in Hades that have played it, it's ridiculous. Like, people sink well over 100 hours into that game like it's nothing. I haven't put that much time into Hades, but I really enjoyed my time with it, and circling back, Bastion was the game that put Supergiant on the map, and it was one of those games back in 2008 that really showcased that, hey, downloadable games can be something really, really good. And Bastion offered a lot to like. Not only did it have an excellent visual style that has just aged absolutely gracefully, like even if you go into the game today, it looks fantastic, and it's been, what, over a decade, well over a decade since it's dropped. So excellent visual style, great narration. Like, the narrator in this game, I don't know who he is, but he did a fantastic job with this game. Soundtrack is great, aesthetically it's fantastic. The gameplay, I'm not gonna say is absolutely blow away, like, you know, it being this action platforming title. It's fine, it works, but I think aesthetically this game has just aged beautifully, and the gameplay is still fine, and overall it's a solid game, and for $3 I think it's a great pickup. Alright, next up, we got Oxenfree, which is down to $1.99. And this was the debut title from a studio, Night School Studio. While it was a debut title, it had a lot of developers that worked on like the Telltale titles, and you definitely get a little bit of that vibe. Oxenfree is very much a narrative-driven title. It's kind of like a coming-of-age story with some sci-fi elements. It's pretty good, all things considered. I think the story, you know, some people are going to find it super, super engaging. I thought it had a couple of pitfalls here and there, but overall, I thought it was a really solid thriller. And it had characters that I wouldn't say you're going to like all the characters, but I found the characters to be kind of relatable to what you would see in society. Do you like everybody that you meet in real life? No. But Oxenfree for $1.99 I think is a great deal. It has a cool art style as well. It's not like a big budget title by any stretch of the imagination, but I think $2 is a great pickup for it. Check it out. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised by it, and again, if you're into narrative-driven thrillers, you'll probably have a really good experience with Oxenfree. Next up, we have Agents of Mayhem, which is $1.99. Now, this was a game done by Volition, of course, of Saints Row fame. Agents of Mayhem is very much a wacky open-world action title. It's a game that you absolutely should not be spending, you know, more than $10 for. Thankfully, right now, it's well under $10. It's down to $2. So, if you want a zany, wacky, open-world title that you're not going to take too seriously, it's kind of corny, it's kind of dumb in a lot of regards, but that's kind of the deal with a lot of the Saints Row titles, especially after Saints Row the Third, that they got a little bit wacky, they got a little bit out there. Agents of Mayhem, from a gameplay standpoint, is a little bit rough around the edges, but you can definitely find humor in a lot of the gameplay aspects. I think for $1.99, it's a decent little pickup, and I would say give it a look, especially if you want to get into an open world game that's a little bit more on the comedic side. Agents of Mayhem is going to give you exactly that. Next up, we have State of Mind. This is a game that I constantly recommend whenever it goes on sale. You know, it's a game that when it was coming out, I want to say it was back in 2017, 2018, around that time period, I was really interested right away because of the presentation style. This is such a unique visual style that I know right off the top, some people are going to be like, whoa, this game looks really cool from a presentation standpoint. Other people are going to be like, this is the dumbest visual style I've ever seen. If you're of the mindset that it looks unique, it looks compelling to you, I would say check this game out, not only from that standpoint, but it also tackles a lot of interesting themes when it comes to gaming, and it is a game that is more so story driven. It's more so driven based on its atmosphere and getting you engrossed into the world. And I'm not gonna say it does a slam dunk job at that, and I wouldn't say pay, you know, $10, $15 for it, but again, this is a game much like Agents of Mayhem in the sense that it's well under $10. It's 90% off for $1.99, and it's a pretty interesting little title that a lot of people did miss out on, and I would say, hey, for that price, give it a whirl, and I think you'll be pleasantly surprised by it if you keep your expectations in line. Alright, moving on from that, we have SteamWorld Dig, which is 80% off for $1.99. You'll save an additional 5% if you are a Plus subscriber, and you'll get it for $1.49. Obviously, this is a game that is very much like a Metroidvania. SteamWorld Dig 2 is certainly the better game. Like, let's not make any qualms about it. SteamWorld Dig 2 builds upon the first game and really makes it better. But this is still a solid Metroidvania that I think is a worthwhile playthrough. It's just that the issue with the Metroidvania market is there's so much competition with your top level Metroidvanias that a SteamWorld Dig, you know, you're either going to play the sequel or you're going to play the plethora of other Metroidvanias out there. But, you know, if you're a big fan of Metroidvanias, I would say check this out. It's still very, very good. Like, the reception for this game was rather strong, and I think you will end up enjoying it. Bear in mind, it is like a decade old as well, so, you know, keep your expectations in line. From that standpoint, Metroidvanias have evolved quite a bit since then, but for $1.49, I think this is a good pickup, and I would say give it a shot. Next up, we have Injustice 2, 85% off for $2.99. This game is a part of the PlayStation Plus Extra catalog, so if you do want to check it out that way, that is an option as well. Obviously, with games like Injustice 2 and fighting games in general that have released within the last decade or so, there is an obscene amount of DLC. So you can pick up the base game for $2.99. There is the Injustice 2 Legendary Edition that includes a ton of bonus content for $9. So you are paying triple the cost, but you're getting a good deal of additional content on top of the base game, so, you know, you can make your decision on that. I'm not a big DC guy, but when you have all of these iconic characters, even for somebody like me, I can get into it, and definitely it's one of those games that if you have, you know, people over and you want to pop in a fighting game, like, you know, even like the most non-video game fan are going to know a lot of the characters, and they're probably going to want to play a game like this. That's why I'm recommending games like Injustice 2, because, you know, I'm sure you guys are going to have a family over for the holidays and whatnot, and if you want to gather together, play a fighting game, I think Injustice 2 is actually a pretty decent option. And the game actually is pretty accessible to non-fighting game fans. I mean, there is depth to it if you want to get into the game from that regard, but it's pretty accessible from a casual standpoint as well. And for $2.99, I think that's a pretty good pickup. Next up, we have Deadlight Director's Cut, which is 85% off for $2.24. This is available with PlayStation Plus Premium. I believe it came out on the PlayStation 3, and then this Director's Cut was the PS4 release. This is a game that definitely has its issues, and there's a lot of zombie games on the market, so, you know, this one is pretty interesting, being an action-adventure platforming zombie title. It's not super lengthy. It has a pretty interesting visual style, where it's definitely got a darker vibe going on for it, and I think that definitely works in the context of a zombie title where it is supposed to be a darker, bleaker title. And they do a good job in executing a quality atmosphere to get you invested into that aspect of the game. The gameplay is certainly frustrating at times, but I think overall, for the price you're paying, $2.24, I think this is a pretty good pickup, all things considered. And lastly, I do want to give a shout to a co-op title in Degrees of Separation. This is a cooperative puzzle title that has a fantastic art style as well. Just a super colorful and vibrant art style. Now, it does only feature local co-op play, so that is a little bit of a bummer, but if you're a fan of puzzle titles and platformers, this is a really solid cooperative one, and if you're just in the market for co-op games, you know, it's very easy to recommend like the Hazelight titles, It Takes Two, A Way Out, but Degrees of Separation is, first of all, much cheaper, and it's one that doesn't get a lot of recognition, and I had forgotten about this game for quite a while, and then I saw that it was $2.99. I'm like, wow, that's a significant discount on a pretty solid platformer. I'm not a big puzzle fan, and I did find some of the puzzles in this game, like, not my cup of tea, but you guys are probably gonna handle puzzle games way better than I do, and even for me, you know, I can get into games like Talos Principle, and Degrees of Separation, definitely a different style of a puzzle game, but from a visual standpoint, a story standpoint, I thought it was fairly decent, but you do want to play this game cooperatively, so bear that in mind as well. But $2.99, solid pickup on that end. And that is going to do it for me. Again, a ton of deals available as a part of this holiday sale. A lot of great stuff. And, you know, a lot of the stuff in this list particularly is not stuff I've mentioned in the past just because this is super, super cheap stuff, and there's a lot of stuff that is discounted in this price range. Like I said at the top, I'm gonna try to take some time and try out some of these super cheap games. Maybe I'll do a dedicated video on one of them. Maybe I'll bundle in, you know, 3 games, give you guys my impressions. I don't know, still working out the kinks on that, but as we are heading into the holidays, we are going to take a little bit of time off. Like, we'll be back at it probably Monday the 26th, or who knows. I'm still working out the exact details on everything we're going to end up doing. But nonetheless, links to everything as